Hey guys, so I just wanted to do a quick video talking about the circulatory system in general as it relates to the heart. I'm not going to talk about the shark, mud puppy, or cat circulatory system separately. That's something that those student-made videos are supposed to help you with, but we're just going to do a quick little video here. Alright, so what is the circulatory system? Well, I also wanted to point out that it's called the cardiovascular system. They are one and the same. In either case, the system is responsible for transporting nutrients, oxygen, carbon dioxide, hormones, and blood cells. Right? So the lung is the site of gas exchange. So oxygen is being transported from the lungs to the rest of the entire body. But then the cells are going to transport carbon dioxide to the lungs, where carbon dioxide is then going to be exhaled. Now, the circulatory system isn't only transporting oxygenated blood to the entire body, it's also transporting glucose, and glucose is needed for the production of ATP to provide energy for cellular functions. There's also the transport of waste. Protein digestion actually creates ammonia. Ammonia is a very toxic substance. As humans, we do not want to secrete ammonia, so ammonia needs to be converted to a less toxic form. So ammonia is converted to urea at the liver, and then the urea is being converted to urine at the site of the kidney. The blood is also transporting hormones. Hormones are part of the endocrine system, and they're needed for things like homeostasis, as well as physiological mechanisms like the distension of the uterine lining during parturition or the distension of the stomach during digestion of the chyme. Now, there are two types of circulatory systems, one of which is an open circulatory system. This is found in a number of insects. And this is when the blood starts out in vessels, but it's not continually contained within those vessels. It enters the body cavity and completely bathes the organs. And because of this, there isn't any real blood pressure after it leaves the vessels. Now, this is different from a closed circulatory system where blood is continually contained within blood vessels, and of course there is blood pressure, as well as valves, and valves are preventing the backflow of blood. And this closed circulatory system is found in vertebrates, including humans. It's also found in annelids, which are your earthworms, and cephalopods, like your squid and octopi. Now, I wanted to point out there are 3 cardiovascular circuits. You should be familiar with all of them: pulmonary, systemic, and cardiac. So the pulmonary is obviously relating to the lungs, like the pulmonary arteries and the pulmonary vein. There's also the systemic circuit, which is relating to the body. So things like the subclavian artery, for instance, would be part of the systemic circuit. And then, of course, there's the cardiac circuit, which is the flow, the blood provided to the heart, like from the coronary arteries. Okay, I just wanted to quickly go over blood and cells. So erythrocytes are your red blood cells. Remember, the spleen is producing and storing and eliminating and breaking down your erythrocytes. There are also leukocytes. They're part of immune system function. They are there to sort of get rid of foreign pathogens or harmful substances. I'm not going to go over leukocytes, but just realize there are a number of different types. There's also plasma. So red blood cells and plasma are completely different things. Plasma is where the water, salts, and nutrients, hormones, and different proteins are located. And then, of course, there are platelets, which are needed to stop bleeding if you hurt yourself. Now let's talk about chambered hearts. Remember, there are some organisms that have a 2-chambered heart. There are some organisms that have a 3-chambered heart. And, of course, mammals have a 4-chambered heart. Now, fish, they have a 2-chambered heart. That means they have 1 atrium and 1 ventricle. And gas exchange is taking place at the gills. So blood is pumped from the heart to the gills and then to the rest of the body. Now, in amphibians have a 3-chambered heart. That means they have 2 atrium and 1 ventricle. And then, of course, they have a pulmonary circuit and a systemic circuit. So blood is from the systemic circuit is going to come back to the heart via the hepatic vein and the cardinal vein. It's going to be pumped from the sinus venosus into the right atrium. but there's also oxygenated blood from the pulmonary circuit being pumped into the left atrium through the pulmonary vein. So you have oxygenated blood and unoxygenated blood being pumped through the right and left atrium, and they mix in the ventricle, and then, of course, oxygenated blood goes out to the rest of the body. Okay, so let's quickly go over the mammalian heart. Mammals have four-chambered hearts. That means there are two atria and two ventricles. So blood from the posterior and anterior regions of the body is being pumped back towards the heart through the pre-cava and the post-cava. Now, sometimes you'll see these cavas referred to as the inferior vena cava and the superior vena cava. They are one and the same. I don't care which of these terms you use on the exam. But I do want you to realize that the pre-cava is bringing blood from the anterior region back to the heart, and the post-cava is bringing blood from the posterior region back to the heart. In these veins, they're going to release blood into the right atrium. The blood then flows to the right ventricle, and then it's pumped out through the pulmonary trunk and the arteries. So the pulmonary trunk is going to bifurcate into the right and left pulmonary arteries, and that's going to supply blood to the lungs, where that blood then becomes oxygenated. That blood comes back to the heart through the pulmonary vein. It's going to enter the left atrium. It's then going to go to the left ventricle, and then this oxygenated blood is going to be pumped out through the systemic arch to the rest of the body. Now, one thing that you do need to know for this exam, that there are three arteries coming off the systemic arch. There's the dorsal aorta, the subclavian, and the innominate artery. The innominate artery is the first. It then bifurcates into the carotid arteries, which are supplying blood to the head and the neck and the face region. Then it's the subclavian artery. The subclavian artery is sending blood to the arms. And then there's the dorsal aorta, which is obviously supplying blood to the posterior organs, like the digestive organs. So once again, the blood is being pumped throughout the entire body. And then the corresponding veins of those different organs, like the gastric vein, it corresponds with the gastric artery, those veins are going to bring blood back to the heart via the pre-cava and the post-cava, and the cycle goes again. You need to understand the flow of blood through the shark heart, amphibian heart, and the mammal heart in detail, okay?